And we've got away from kind of what I like to think of as a kind of a constitutional attitude. That is, the public doesn't understand the government in its limited role, and certainly the politicians themselves don't understand.
That was the great wisdom of the founding fathers of this country, of the people who wrote the Constitution. That Constitution was designed to limit government's powers in order to preserve the freedom of the individuals. And what has happened in the past 50 years is that the fundamental character of the Constitution has really been changed. We have broadened enormously the conception of what is a governmental power and what is not, and have departed from that limited government until we have created a Frankenstein, an unlimited government that threatens to destroy it.
We're never asked the question, well, is this constitutional?
Right.
They just say, well, can we get a vote on it?
Exactly, exactly.
Government needs limitations. And for 200 years, the building of Constitution aimed at limiting government. Now suddenly we have arrived at the idea where government, because it's supposedly democratic, needs no other limitations. And what I want to make clear is that we must reimpose limitations on governmental power.
I think we need to somehow get back to our, what you might call our constitutional understanding, our constitutional roots, but I don't see much movement in that direction.
During the last several elections, when you hear presidents talking about, or people asking presidential candidates, what's your economic plan? I find that rather amazing because, you know, the bosses in Eastern Europe had economic plans, in the Soviet Union they had economic plans, in China and Cuba and North Korea. And if you ask what's the common characteristic of all these economic plans, they've been failures. They've led to lower standards of living and lower human rights protections. And lo and behold, we have Americans asking for the same.
If I am at each stage dependent on, as it were, the permission or consent of any other person, I could never systematically pursue my own end.
Keep in control and don't let the government become the master instead of the servant. And the real problem is, in my opinion, that as we move from the local community to the state, from the state to the federal government, it becomes increasingly difficult for us to control the mechanism we have established. And that mechanism tends to control us.
Among all the, among all the countries, the nations, we have a set of documents. We have a set of documents that can provide the moral foundations, as you say, and instead we ignore those documents. I mean, Britain, for example, doesn't have such a thing, but we have the Declaration, we have the Constitution. So in a sense, we're not using the capital value that those documents could provide in accomplishing what you and I are talking about. That is this sort of philosophical understanding of what we're about as a people. And to see that having eroded and see it still eroding and see absolutely no understanding or no sensibility toward that, it's a tragedy of major proportion.